Welcome back. Sometimes it's easy to notice when our kids feel good about themselves and when they don't. The question now, how can we as parents help our children and their self-esteem, and why it's so important? So we're joined today by Abigail Kraus with the Family Support Center. Abigail, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about self-esteem. When do we start to see that develop in children?
Well, so normally when you think about a newborn, right, newborn doesn't really have concept of self. However, that's not really times that I think that's times that parent can still actually help children develop self-esteem, right? And then as we see kids continue to grow, we see that self-esteem grows.
So what can we do to help our child build their self-esteem? You said it starts at a really young age.
Yeah, well, I think parents with newborns, I think that they can show them that they're safe, they're loved, that they're accepted. And then as kids continue to develop, I think that parents, that they can listen to and they can validate children's feelings and their thoughts. We can really set clear and appropriate expectations and give them appropriate help in situations, develop situations that can help foster kids' success. I think ultimately, too, is try to focus on strengths and try to ban harsh criticism.
When parents are interacting with their children, they might be wondering, does my child have a normal amount of self-esteem? Are there any concerns? What should we be looking for in our children?
Right. I think that we're seeing that kids are able to, feel confident in themselves, kind of vocalizing confidence. I think that we're trying to see that kids are able to approach situations with confidence, able to approach new situations and not avoid them, as well as also kind to cope with the mistakes that they make. That's where we see that there's healthy self-esteem developing.
Being able to adjust to situations. I love that. And I mean, it's been a wild couple of years. Have you seen many changes in self-esteem for children given what we've been going through the past couple of years with the pandemic?
Unfortunately, we are seeing changes. As I discussed last week, actually, when I was on, we're seeing that suicide is unfortunately the second leading cause of death among teenagers. And so a lot of that, because healthy self-esteem is really the foundation of healthy emotional well-being, we're seeing that that's being affected. And I do think that the pandemic has a lot to do with that situation.
Parents are role models for their kids. I can imagine that a lot of parents might be wondering, am I showing my child what a healthy amount of self-esteem looks like? Do you have any advice for parents or any mistakes that parents may make when they're trying to model healthy behaviors for their children?
Well, I think one is, you're right, is just be a role model, right? I think, which we had discussed before, is being out there, being open about emotions, trying to also care for your own well-being, getting yourself the help if you need that as well. And kind of like I said before, is really trying to focus on the strengths. So not just in our children, but also in ourselves, right? Trying to ban that criticism that we might give ourselves as well, I think, is being a really great role model for our kids.
A lot of helpful information. Before we go, where can people find more information on all of this?
Yes, you can always contact the FamilySupportCenter.org. That is where I work, Family Support Center. We've got counseling, nurseries, and also Life Start Village, and great resources to help you out.
All right, Abigail Kraus, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.